John Glon, who has spent the last 13 years building Great Lakes Essential Power from the ground up, but also is a leadership team coach with Bloom Growth.
But helping the people grow so that the company grows. And that's what the differentiator with Bloom Growth is, that we are focusing on the human to get the most out of the business. I now know I was just running from the business. I wasn't actively engaged emotionally. I was just in a ball. A lot of it was just beating myself up because I thought I'd really failed the company. But when you start measuring your vendors and your clients against that, you start realizing, man, it sucks doing business with people that suck. Look back 2 years and I'm like, wow, I just buried the company because we went and did this. And my stubbornness, because you're just thinking of the big pie, but you haven't thought through all the steps potentially. The best mechanism is just finding the right-hand man or woman that you guys can really have that conversation with together inside the company.
This is the unfiltered truth about entrepreneurship. Raw, no BS, no sugarcoating. Welcome to Entrepreneur Intel. I'm your host, Wes Matthews. Each episode, we'll learn from experienced founders and uncover the top 5% learnings that led to their success in all things personal, family, and business. This show is sponsored by Stealth Consulting, delivering clear marketing strategies, ROI, and no surprises. So super excited for today's guest. I want to introduce John Glon, who has spent the last 13 years building Great Lakes Essential Power from the ground up, learning through successes and setbacks, but also is a leadership team coach with Bloom Growth, helping entrepreneurs and leadership teams scale with clarity, purpose, and strong human connection. But also you are a certified working genius facilitator, helping companies scale further through human flourishing. So at the core, believes leaders thrive when they reconnect with who they are, not just the roles they serve. When leaders operate from fullness rather than depletion, everything around them grows. So John, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Wes.
Well, I want to get right to it. So you have 3 kids that you all love the same: Great Lakes Essential, Bloom Growth, Genius Facilitator. Which one do you love a little better?
Well, actually, I love my 4 children far more. I need to make sure I do that plug, and my wife. So
okay. Well, that's assumed. So yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. But I need to make sure I get clips of that and share it with my wife so she knows it. Where my future lies is the Bloom Growth coaching, right? I've with my base business, it has been wonderful for me. It's been wonderful for my people. The time has come for me to pass that along to my employees, to let them share in the entrepreneurial journey. And so we're going through that a little bit. And again, that's been a kind of a confidential, but not at the same time. Part of that, and the reason why I want to do that, is because as a Bloom Growth coach, right, that's an operating system, just like entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, which I know we're going to get into, which I know you're aware of. What's allowed me to really step into and want to be a Bloom Growth coach is because I ran my company through EOS and I had an implementer. Mike Coates is phenomenal. And I saw how he did things and I realized, wow, I can really do that. And I can I really enjoy helping not just companies grow, because that's centered just on business, but helping the people grow so that the company grows. And that's what the differentiator with Bloom Growth is, that we are focusing on the human to get the most out of the business. And that really scratches my itches.
With 13 years building Great Lakes Essential Power, at what point were you like, okay, like as an entrepreneur, I want to move on, or like, why not just double down, stay there? Like what sort of happened there where you started to look for the next thing or another thing?
It's interesting because this is the first really public foray that I've actually, a lot of people know about it, but publicly with some of my partners, I haven't announced it, and we're going to, so it's not a big deal. But me actively saying some things out loud in a forum like this has been a little different. So I would say it was certainly a little after COVID, and we were in the construction business. We sell heavy electrical equipment, and it just, we had such a rough time in the construction industry with cash flow. And so I made some bets, went to the bank, asked for some cash to see us through kind of the tough times, right? We didn't want to slow down our momentum with people and our structure. And I was a little stubborn in some of that, really burned through all that cash. And at the same time, I realized I was running away from the business because there were some tough things that were happening with the people we were dealing with the manufacturer, et cetera. And I now know I was just running from the business. I wasn't actively engaged emotionally. I was just in a ball. A lot of it was just beating myself up because I thought I'd really failed the company. And now I'm in a mound of debt. And didn't really see a way out. And that translates into family and everything else that that I put my family through some things on the financial side of things that I'm, don't love. They got to learn a few things along with me, which is a great learning for me. But at that time, I just wanted to get the hell out, right? So there was a noose around my neck because it was the debt. And again, some of the people we were dealing with, and I just realized we talk about core values and all those things that I know you're very well. And we do that internally for our people is measuring up our people against our core values. But when you start measuring your vendors and your clients against that, you start realizing, man, it sucks doing business with people that suck, right? As humans. And that's what I was just running from. And what I have a personal coach that helped me realize that I was just running. It was a common theme of mine. I was just running. And I said, I wanted to get out. So I went to my team and said, hey, I want out. I want you to buy me out. Went to talk to a couple strategic people, said, I'm looking to get out. And this was a few years ago. And that was when I was in the runaway mode. And through the years of me going through this process, I've realized that, I was bored. I don't love parts of the business. I love some of the business, but there are parts of the business model that I didn't love. And so I was just telling myself that's why I wanted to get out. But ultimately, it just wasn't scratching my itches. From a human perspective, I wanted to help people, and I was running out of ways to do that within my own business because I would scratch that itch. I would do some things with my people, like helping create their personal plan. It's like taking the EOS BTO or the Bloom growth plan and doing it from a personal level, so that they would create a list of their dreams and then plan out their family like we would with our business. And so that was scratching a lot of itches for me, and I love that. But then I ran out of people to do that with. And then I was like, well, shit, how the hell do I find other people to go do this? And that fell into lots of introspection. That's when I ended up going to the mountain with Coach Bob. And again, there's just a ton of self-reflection to figure out what in the world I really want to go do. And now it's no longer I'm running from the business. I am now excited to hand it to people that really have a passion for it and can get a taste of the entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you for that share. Like that's deep, and a lot of people, that's the rawness of being an entrepreneur. And, I want to pick on something there though, because it resonates with me that I think a lot of people, you start to talk core values. First of all, when I heard of core values, I thought about like integrity, trust, and like all those posters on the wall. Right. But I think the realization is when you have really good core values and you're living your core values, you brought something up interesting that when I first implemented my thing, right, my operating system, it was very much like, this is who we are, this is what we do. But you said when you start looking at vendors and outside people, right, like that's really interesting because when I first started this journey, I never thought about that. It was always like, this is who we are. Our tribe does this. But, at what point did you have that epiphany of like, wait a minute now, like this seeps out of us and who we do business with? Because that sounds to me like that was giving you the heartburn.
Once I stopped and felt, because we were doing some of again, I had my coach for EOS, right, my implementer. And we were just going through the normal core values exercise and of just talking through what our core values are. Are we hiring? Are we firing? Are we promoting people within our organization based on that? And sometimes when you really break through the, not the pay to play ones, like you were saying, integrity and trust, like that's just, you got to be a good human. Either you have that or you don't. And you don't want to be around that kind of person anyway. But once you start getting to some things that are real and not making them up, and not because they're just me, but what does the company feel like? We had both vendors, humans, and then customers that were just treating us like shit, treating my people like shit. And it just really started grinding on me, right? I could get on the phone and I could take it. Then it started taking a toll on me. And it was just an epiphany through me at one time. And I was like, wow, this is a friend chooser or a people chooser, right? When I got connected to Bloom Growth, that's where it really kind of seeded in, because it is, we make it more about just ourselves and we look at the whole picture, the whole grand scheme of things. And quite frankly, the more we've distanced ourselves from the client and vendor, it's amazing how much more joyful the team is and more we're actually getting done. And one, by the way, was our largest client that we had to let go. And it was the most freeing thing for our people. For us, it was scary, but we've displaced it and then some. And it's the same conversation I have with my clients today. Internally, how slow people are to move on from someone who doesn't meet their core values. It screams they don't meet them when I'm in meetings with them, right? They're in a meeting, you can tell they're like the odd person out, but yet companies don't do anything about it. You hear the same vendors when I'm in a quarterly session that are giving heartburn, and same customers, and how freeing it is to give someone the push to say, guys, is it worth doing business with this person if they're that terrible to deal with because it's dragging your company down? It's amazing how many conversations and how many things we do in business actually correlate right back to that. And you're right. Most people, if they do have core values and they use them in the right way that aren't just slapped on their website or on their wall, they're focused internally on it. And when you flip that switch and start using that lens from the holistic of all the humans that we deal with in business, it's amazing. I call it multiplication by subtraction, not addition by subtraction.
It's interesting to think about, right? Because what's cool is it's like universal language. It's not just because you were in the construction world, it applied to you. Like you could insert any business, but that's super scary though too, right? Like you're an entrepreneur, this client's annoying or just doesn't fit your culture, beating up your team, but it's like, well, this is like our largest client, and if we lose them, like we have to backfill. So there's an opportunity, right, to like earn a lot of credibility as a leader, but then you have the dilemma of backfilling that work. But I guess my specific ask would be, do you regret any of it, right? Like firing that client while you're going through it is super hard, challenging, but reflecting back, like, is it, no, that was a perfect decision, or, what, any experience share there?
That's a good question. And I think that the learning would be more of reframing it just in the way you said it, that I heard it, was we did it to do it. And part of it happened with us and for us, right? It was kind of so circumstantial that it worked itself out. But if I flipped it to the point where you were saying, hey, we got to go grow, and aside from this, I think some of our own language didn't match that. We kind of went into a shell at first, like, oh shit, what are we going to go do? Versus, hey guys, now this frees us up mentally, emotionally, right? It's a rallying cry to go change it, right? I think that's where we could have done it better, because I think we took longer to backfill that than had we really used that language in the right way. Not just language, not just words, but the meaning behind what we actually did. And you said this, most companies, certainly the small ones, all revenue seems like it's good revenue. And it is a hard spot when you're small, is to come to that realization that even though you think you need it all, at least have a plan to make that change. I'm not just suggesting potentially just flipping a switch, because that can be tough, but have a plan. What are you doing outside of it to get someone else?
Yeah, it's kind of a forcing mechanism, right? But it's great that you were able to see it as a leader, because sometimes it's like, I don't care. Like they can treat us like whatever. They're paying us. I had a sales guy many, many years ago that he was the number one producer, just killing it, like brought in so much money, but like he beat my team up. Right. And I was delusional, because I'm like, I think like we're going to dive into like EOS and Bloom Growth and stuff, but like I'm a visionary entrepreneur, and I typically default to relationships and growth and revenue, right? Bringing clientele in. And he was bringing clients in, but like he just beat the team up. And it finally I finally woke up one day and realized, like, people were telling me like, this is terrible for the culture. And I was so scared to fire him. And we just kind of went down that path. And I was like, I wish I would have done this years earlier. Like it was just this weight off my back, and people were like, so-and-so had left. They left because of it, but I thought they left because of something else. So
when you did that, how did the team react when you did that?
Oh, I was like the hero. Like, finally, like, why did it take you this long? And, I kind of had to put my tail between the legs as a leader and say, like, I'm going to do better. Like I wasn't really living up to our core values, and, please have an open line of communication. Like, it was an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, right? So like, that kind of led to your new chapter. I'm going to call it your new chapter.
Yeah.
So like, you mentioned you had a really good implementer, right? Mike Kotsis, I think you mentioned, which I've met him. Great dude. Mm-hmm. So with all that learning and stuff, like if EOS and this implementer were really impactful, like why Bloom Growth? I'm just curious as to like why.
How it actually came to be was I always said that I wanted to be an EOS implementer, and not always, but right after I've been in that EOS community for quite a while, right? That ancestral, larger community with a lot of implementers and a lot of vendors that serve into that community. And, I'd had some people just say, hey, maybe I said I wanted to. And then they were like, well, maybe that's not for you. And I'm like, well, shit. At first I was like, you saying I'm not, like, I can't do it? And then after some more questions, it was like, hey, how it's set up might not be what you want, because they knew I had some other things that I wanted to go do. And so I was actually doing Working Genius certification because that really resonated with me, and it was easy and for me to implement with organizations. And so I actually got hired to do facilitation for all of Bloom Growth, because Bloom Growth is actually a software company that happens to now have an operating system and a coaching community. And I was doing a Working Genius facilitation for their leadership team and their ownership team, and actually facilitated throughout their whole company. At the time, there was 80 some employees. And they did a full day session with the leadership team and the ownership team through how we're going to, integrate this through the company. They said, we just launched an operating system and a coaching platform. We think you'd be great at it. Because I told them I want to be an EOS implementer, right? And it was just like this perfect click, this perfect time. That was September 29th in 2023. And I was in Toronto, and I just remember the flight back that next morning, just so excited. Like, okay, I have a chapter. I have a what I've wanted, but in a different way. Because they were really adding in, again, it's just an evolution, right? EOS is, again, fantastic at what it does. Some of the other ones that have all done, and Gino Wickman is the best, but there's just been some offshoots, right? Some improvements of it. And Bloom Growth, what really resonated with me is they were going from a human-centered place, from a human trust perspective, to get a high-performing team. And the focus is on growing. And if you're not focused on growing, then go ahead and do a system that just allows you to operate functionally well. So that's ultimately, circumstantially, how it worked out. But but now the criteria to become a Bloom Growth coach is a little different than some of the other ones, right? You have to be an entrepreneur and transitioning to another part of life, and having had to grow a company a certain size, and so it really resonated with me. And again, how it gives me opportunity to work with other teams, work in other industries, and really just get people to achieve their dreams through their business.
It's kind of lonely being an entrepreneur, and you can be like, oh, poor Mr. Successful Entrepreneur, right? Like, but to your point, like, there's so many things that happen behind the scenes, and people only see like what they want to see, or like the social media reels, right? But it's challenging. This economy is challenging. There's always headwinds, good, bad, or indifferent. But when you think about coaching, right, and like going through it, been through it, and you're implementing Bloom Growth, like, what do you see? What does a client have to be experiencing where it makes sense? Like you mentioned, you have a coach too, which I want to touch on, but like, just tell me like why somebody would need a coach of Bloom Growth, or you, or like, because a lot of people are like, yeah, John, I'm fine, or like things are fine or okay, or I don't need a coach. I've gotten the company to 5 million, right? Like, I don't,
yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? Like, how does that make you feel? Like, how do you respond to that?
I think, again, most of the time it's almost like clients are coming screaming. So that's when they have a lot of pain for whatever reason, right? Because most of the time it's that 3 and 5 million range where people don't know how to get past it. And because it's back to that loneliness of being an entrepreneur, because everything is on you. And it's so clear to see whenever I talk to folks when that's the case. And implementing an operating system with a coach, right, I think is having someone that helps make people uncomfortable to do what they don't think they should do. And it's sharing that loneliness, not just the loneliness, but all the burden that you have as a owner, is getting that to be shared with a leadership team. And that's the biggest thing that I get to unlock, is taking all that pain and suffering that people don't see or know, getting it out so the leadership team knows it. And so then how do they actually help and get people, enact other people to help you get through that as an organization? Because you're not going to grow past yourself. And you need a next level leadership team to go do that. That was the long-winded part of, like, mostly it's a pain that's coming to me. So they're either stuck where they are, they don't have any time, and, or they're trying to figure out how to grow and they just don't know how. That's on the negative side. On the positive side, it's they're like, hey, we're growing like crazy, and this is awesome, but I'm seeing something coming around the corner, or I am, I just don't know that I have the right leadership team. There's one, back to when people just say, "Hey, I'm fine." I just had a client come back to me. I talked to a year and a half ago that came to me at the end of the year and was like, "All right, man," and we're friends. And I had said some things that resonated with him in the past. Like we do have which we can talk about, a curriculum that is about exiting your company, or not really exiting, but an event and how you can exit your company. And it just resonated with him. He's like, "Okay, I think I'm finally ready because I'm running out of ideas." And he said, the one thing that I need from you is to make me uncomfortable. And that's when I knew, one, it was going to be a good client fit, is because it's someone that understands that not just, "Hey, I know that I have all the answers and I'm just coming in and paying you so my people think we're doing something." It's knowing that to do something to get beyond where you are today, there's going to be pain, or there's going to be something in there. And that's really my job. And I said, signed up, because that is like my job description for you, is to make you uncomfortable.
Is it exhausting, right? Like I feel like I'm a visionary, and like when I spend time with people or invest time with people and I kind of give them my all, like I'm drained. Like after, like maybe the next day or 2 days after, like I am completely zapped. Like, how do you deal with that? Or like you are dealing with the top 5% good and the top 5% bad, right? Yeah. So like, how do you keep that train on the tracks? Because I find that fascinating, because it's a lot.
And it's actually helping me through clients that I've had and offboarded, or whether my choice or theirs. What's really comes back down to the core value thing that we talked about before. It's now with me, right? It was me launching my practice. Like I want all the practice, my coaching practice. I do want practice. I want to do the work so that I can get better at facilitation and all these other things. But realizing that, again, not all clients are good clients. Just in this, right? If I have to push someone over the finish line to get to a yes, I'm going to be pushing them the whole way through. So if it's not with clients that I'm now onboarding, if it's not a hell yes and their whole team is all excited, I really don't want them, because I don't want to, because what will have to happen is I will have to pull them through all the sessions. I will have to pull them through all and make sure hey, are we really trying to grow or do something different here? That does get tiring. But there are breakthroughs. So that's one part that does kind of, that's good, get to flip it for me, is in our curriculum that we have that is over a 2-year program, which is the human flourishing side of it, is we do have an element for each and every meeting that I'm a part of that we are trying to get down to, at the human level, increasing relationships. And a lot of that is self-work. So working on what's triggering us, what's holding us back individually so we can help the team. And as we go through, like say the first 90 days, we go through some pretty deep things. And I do like to say that some of my meetings, I measure them in tiers because we go there. And that really helps with me and my energy, is when I get breakthroughs in that. Because right, the menagerie, the business just acumen of we're setting quarterly priorities and we're doing this and this is what are we doing in sales and finance, right? That's not terribly exciting for me. That's just, we know how to go do this. When we throw in that human element and I'm breaking those leaders down and breaking that thick candy shell that creates those uneasy, just rough meetings, that's what gets me through. Because again, I know we're cracking. We took a little crisp out of the shell, and then I continue to work on it as I work with them. And I find that the quarterly strategy sessions now with the clients I have are energizing, because we're doing some big things. Right, a lot of it's whether we're helping them send someone else to a new career, meaning go be happy somewhere else because they're the rat in the company. Or we just had a huge epiphany about doing a cash flow analysis, because again, it's about educating the leadership team. Many times it's the owner is the one that knows the finance game and no one else does. So there's just a lot of things that I get so much energy from the ahas and the epiphanies that come out of the meetings.
Kind of probably learn a little bit more about yourself when you lead them.
Oh, absolutely. I can't, I'm not just a facilitator that, it's not like I was a teacher somewhere else. And then I just come in and do this and start working with leadership teams, right? I've been through this stuff. I've been through all these things, and me doing those exercises myself, that only makes me show up better for them. And leaning in for myself.
I want to bring up something because, we talked about this lightly, and I think it's a super important one. When you have a leader or people that blame everybody else for problems, right? Like, I can reflect on this, and I remember a time, I think it was like before I found EOS, or that was like one of my epiphanies. I'm like, everything's outward, right? Everything's falling apart and blowing up. And then I had that realization when, I think I'll never forget, it was like, I had so many people on the leadership team, and it was like this pointing game of like, who's doing that? Like, I was in every seat. And like the realization was I was causing every single problem that was happening around me. So like, what happened for you when you stopped blaming everybody else? And I want to unpack that a little bit more.
Actually, that's a little piece of the story that I did leave out back, with my running away from the company thing. I was part of it was, and I know we connected on this a little bit actually when we first met. I know you had just exited your business, you were golfing a ton, and I got to be the business guy who was out golfing all the time. And, that's a badge of honor that many business owners get to wear, right? We finally made it. I'm not working in the business. I got people are making money for me, and I'm out golfing like crazy. And then, that's back when this stuff was happening, the downward spiral in some of the company. And then someone like tapping on the shoulder, like, that's great, but are you growing? I'm like, shit, no, we're actually doing pretty shitty, but I'm not in the business. And so at that time, that's part of my bitterness was I was pointing at, guys, we're not doing what I said we were going to do. And they're like, well, you never said it. So part of it was me not setting expectations, and they can't live up to something I don't share with them. Right. It was my own, well, this is what I think they should go do based on what I know. And they didn't do that. So that was a part of the whole story was me stopping pointing the finger at everyone else and realizing I got to be honest with them and with myself and really let some of that stuff go, because it was bitter as hell. Again, came into the home, it's just a downward spiral because it's just a snowball of that blame game. And then no one feels appreciated. No one feels like they're doing the right thing. Even though I'm a nice person, I don't lead with a heavy hand. But when I backhandedly share my disappointment, they know me. So then it's like, well, okay, I read you. And it's just, again, it's just a slippery slope. So that was a relation that really changed the direction of me altogether. And I know you, again, some of our journey has been a little bit paralleled that we've talked through. And ultimately that's why I am where I am now, is stopping blaming everyone else. And
hindsight, it's like, why didn't I start doing that sooner? But I mean, I always hear this thing of like work-life harmony balance. It's like, nah, it's like you have personal stuff, family, business. Like, unfortunately, as an entrepreneur, it is what it is. Like, they're all together. Like, until somebody can prove me wrong, like so it's like, if I even look at that now through like my family or friends or anything, it's like, what's my part in this? Like, what can I do? Again, I'm not perfect, and I mess up all the time, and even for you, like here we are, like, we're fairly like educated operating system guys, and yet we still fumble and fall. And like, sometimes you got to go back to the basics, right?
Sometimes you need someone else to show you what you don't see, right? Because even all the work that we've done, again, like you said, the work-life balance, it swings in so many different pendulums because you feel like you're undoing or overdoing one thing. So you slide to the other, and it's hard to find harmony in some cases. It's hard for you to see it yourself when you are resisting off the track or something. So that's where, for me, a coach or just, again, mentors, people, friends that will call you on your stuff, is a huge piece of finding that for yourself.
So is the missing piece then, like, let's just use the 3 to 5 million, because we mentioned that. Like, what I hear and my assumption is you need to transition as a founder to how are you investing in your leadership team and how your leadership team is aligned. Like, is that the core focus? Like, I mean, is that at the highest level of, okay, what are you doing to invest here? Because I feel like even myself sitting in that same position now in round 2 of building a company, it's like, have I done enough? Have I connected with my people? Do they have capacity? Like, how do I block and tackle for them? Because we're still very much in the business, all playing key roles as well. But it's like, how do you take a step back and like change?
That's absolutely right. And it goes back to where I was saying, let the founder not be alone. Are you having your next level leadership team and getting to that point? because we've got it. You can't just flip a switch and do it. It takes time. You have to make a decisive move on how to go do that and plan it out. And I know you guys are going through a lot of that now of hiring and doing different things, but what does it need to look like a year or 18 months from now? And then how do we go do that? And then not just relying on the people we have today, but being honest with the people we have today. Are they the ones that can take us to that next level or not? Not in a bad way. They can still be a part of the organization, but have they really done this, and can they really do it? Have we given them a chance to, with some training, with some mentorship? Have we done that route to see if they are the right one? But if they're not, are we ready to make a move to bring someone that is? Because I think we spend so much time toiling around the people we have, or that have been loyal, or that have been there from the beginning, that again are great people and they do great things, but they might not be greatest at that role that we really need to lift the lid off this thing. And so it's not a one answer, but it is all about that leadership team. And not to say just focus on the leadership team. It's about focusing on that leadership team so that then they can then filter it out through the rest of the organization. Because I heard of something in what you said, like, we as founders, like, we got to make sure we're staying on top of everyone to make sure our relationships, are they strong? Are they learning the best they can? But the more we lift up that leadership team to go do that for the rest of the organization, that really solidifies your question.
How do you begin to unpack that, right? As a founder entrepreneur, where, what got you here might not get you there. Sally's been here since the beginning. I should just put her in that seat, as we grow. And I see this as in 3 years, like, what's like the first step for an owner, entrepreneur, visionary to like have a little bit of realization there? Like, is there an exercise? Is there like, what do you recommend there? Because I mean, I hear that, I see that, but it's like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs avoid.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. They avoid the hard like when it comes to that type of stuff. Like you said, you were running from some things. I think it's like, oh man, Sally, like she's doing good. And you put a lot of hope in, man, I think, I feel, right. But like, in your heart, it's like not the right fit, but you don't want to hurt their feelings. They got you to this point, but now we want to grow, and we might have outgrown you a little bit.
Yeah. I think, well, one, like you said, I think we're all looking for the easy button, right? We do hard things, but boy, that easy button sure makes life a lot better. Because there's one less, because we have all the other things in the organization that we're thinking about. So if I can actually take one thing off my mind, that's just, again, relief in some form or fashion to go, we think we're going to focus on something else. But reality is we're constantly going back then and doing that person's job for them, or constantly questioning them, or putting goalposts around them to help them get their job done, which is taking time away from everyone else. So what it really boils down to fundamentally is we try to find a spot for the person versus what do we actually need, and being clear on what the role definition is. Not about what we think we do today, not about what we think that person can do, but like finding in the right way. And there isn't a real easy way to do this if you don't know, but having people around you to know, like, hey, I'm trying to hire, we'll call it your second in command, or your, whatever it is, right? The integrator, or whatever you want to call it. What do you really need that job to do? And being clear on what that means by taking things off your plate, right? Not just doing it to think we can try to fit it into sound right for the person who's sitting in the room that we think would fill that spot. What the hell do we really need in a year and 18 months from now? Strategically really doing in that seat so that they are functionally owning it for the company and really running the company. The more we can be honest with what that really means, we can have a real conversation with that person to say, I'm seeing these things. You don't have experience in this and this. Are you willing to go, we can talk about what it looks like. Right now, this doesn't seem like it fits your profile, but can we get you there? And do you want to get there? Because this is going to be a far different thing than you're doing today. Sometimes those conversations just work themselves out and they self-select. Yeah, you know what? That's more responsibility than I really want. Let me go back down to here. That happens a lot of the time. And I guess most of the time is just sticking true to what those roles and responsibilities are. Is hard to do, but being real with it.
I've made so many mistakes around trying to put, mold the person into the role versus just, this is what the role needs. And then honestly too, like selling everybody around me to buy into what I'm saying. And like,
that's our job. That's what we do.
And then it blows up,
Yeah.
It's a really good point. I mean, like what's a good takeaway for then somebody? Because what you just said is so, like, I'm learning here, but like that really stuck out to me because it's like, okay, it's okay, Sally. Like, you're not ready for today, but here's the role for 18 months. Like, are you typically checking in as a leader with that person? Like, are you personally building them the roadmap? Or is this what I hear in my mind is like, I don't have time capacity. I got to hire somebody like John to do it because we can get off this podcast and I'm now motivated to do it. But like everything else, like you said, it's like, all of a sudden now I get up and it's boom, 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 boom. And I'll get to that when I can. And then I prioritize things in my head and shove that down here. And then life make sure as the leadership team's on the same page of what we really think we need as a role and responsibility. That's great. And that's the beauty of doing quarterly meetings, right? Having a strategy, whether you call it rocks as EOS or we just call it simple priorities, have them own it. You can't want it more than they do. So put it on them. The person who thinks they want that job, if they do, say, okay, put together a plan that's going to help you learn these things. I can't do this for you. I need you to show that you have it and want this thing. So put it on them. You can help them with like, hey, if there's some leadership training or something like that, you come up with it, you research, and you might have some things on your own, but say, in order for you to fill that seat, I have to have you self-do this. That's not something that I have in my capacity. Or if you have, again, a large enough organization that you do have someone, and it's not the founder having to do it, have someone mentor it and say, hey, we'll do check-ins. I want you to do a 6-month picket, right? Whatever the time frame you're looking for. Let's do put a 6-month plan together about how you're going to address all these things. Where your shortcomings are. So make it that they own it. And again, sometimes these things, when you put it in that frame, then they're like, well, shit, I'm out. And that couldn't be anything better. Because you know it, they know it. And then how do we put you in the right spot? If you're the right core value fit, how do we find you in the right spot? Well, I feel like, as a visionary entrepreneur myself, like who's holding the visionary accountable? Right? Like, I don't report to anybody, right? Like, this is my company. Well, but like at some point, I think when you buy into this concept of how do I become a better leader? How do I show up? It's like, you need help. I mean, if you're a good visionary, you want to grow, like you need help. Yeah.
And I think there's some different stages of companies and where they are. I think ultimately, one thing that I do find fault in some operating systems and how people operate is they have the visionary or the CEO up here, and then they have COO or president or whatever down directly below. So there still is a hierarchy where I firmly believe, and with Bloom Growth, I think the real power, and I think you've heard it numerous times, right? The visionary integrator duo, right? When you have that right firepower, and I think you guys have that, is they're side by side. So on an org chart, on everything, on responsibilities, they're the same level. So it's not that the visionary is better or any worse, because quite frankly, that COO, that integrator is getting more work done than the visionary is, right? They're the ones actually running the company if done right. So you've got the visionary and the integrator, same page. And the integrator is pushing like hell. And the integrator, you have to be on the same page. It's the most important duo combination in the whole company. Because the visionary can still do their thing. Someone checking on them on it. And by the way, that takes some of the pressure off the visionary thinking they have to have all of the, everything is on their shoulders. But that to me is a clear check. Number one, just within the organization. Secondarily, right, there's all kinds of, that's part of what I do is keeping the visionary not in check, but helping put mechanisms around them so where it's not the rogue, hey, it's do as I say as I do. Here, I got this idea, we're going to go do it. It's making sure that there's that same page check-in to know if now is the right time to be upset in this apple cart, or I think ultimately it comes down to how are we sharing that, not liability, but how are we sharing the decision-making process, I think is the biggest win. Or having a coach. Again, not just me as a growth coach, but just someone else that's to check in with.
You say it very nicely. In my mind, it's like, okay, to face off with a visionary, it's like a UFC cage fight, right? The visionary's in the cage, and like somebody's got to be able to get in that cage and spar with the visionary.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes as a visionary, like nobody's going to step in that ring on your team because you're scary or whatever. Like you sign their check. I mean, the reality is like you own the company, right? But like somebody has got to be able to open that door and punch you in the face a little bit.
Yeah.
And like that's how I operate. Cause it's like, yeah, how am I getting better? How am I sparring? Hey, if, you think you're the toughest guy, like what does Mike Tyson say? Like whatever
until you're saying, you have a plan until you're punched in the mouth.
Right. Like everything's good, but I left my right side open. You hit me. It's like, ooh, I didn't see that. Right. Like, I think that's like the void you fill.
No, absolutely. Right. Because one, visionaries need to be heard. Their ideas need to be felt out. If not, we can be the biggest detriment to the company. Again, because I'm a visionary too, right? We come in, we're going to make this change. And then if you don't look back in 3 months to see if you should be doing something different, you're 2 years later, which is where, again, a lot of my own shit comes from. Look back 2 years and I'm like, wow, I just buried the company because we went and did this, and my stubbornness. But if we share that conversation and have someone to bounce things off of, and a lot of times it's just to be heard or just to get this off my mind and written out. And then you can be talked into like, okay, you're right. This isn't the right idea because you're just thinking of the big pie, but you haven't thought through all the steps potentially. And so just having someone, and again, the best mechanism is just finding the right hand man or woman that you guys can really have that conversation with together inside the company. And it doesn't have to be a bashing, to your point. It doesn't have to be like, hey, in a cage fight, it's, I'm hearing you. I'm going to hear you out. But here's why this shouldn't be happening right now.
I like to use extreme examples because that's how I roll.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need to be punched in the head.
Yeah.
Or like somebody from the crowd throwing stuff at you, right? I mean, it's kind of, so with that being said, I could talk to you all day about this because this is my jam. But if there's an entrepreneur, visionary, whomever that's struggling, right? I think we've shared a lot. You've shared a lot deeply on this podcast, and I appreciate it. But like, what's the easiest way for people to reach out to you, right? I mean, if they have a challenge or problem and a safe spot to kind of talk about this stuff, how do people contact you?
Yeah. One, my email is john.g@bloomgrowthcoach.com. I'm on, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Those are the easiest way. My number, 248-534-8503. Write it down, reach out to me. And really, the best way is just be ready to tell the truth. And a lot of times, the first step is having a chat with me and then being open to sharing those things with your team at some point. And we take it from there. You don't have to hire me, but we do a 90-minute meeting that is incredibly freeing and eye-opening for many leadership teams. That is just a part of the process to help get under the hood a little bit and see let your team tell you where they see some holes. And it's supremely helpful.
Well, awesome, man. I hope some people take advantage of you. You're a great resource. I've walked that path. And I think as an entrepreneur, you can bring a lot to the table. So, John, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time and coming on and the share and going deep. Man, I really appreciate you.
See you soon.
Thanks. This has been another episode of Entrepreneur Intel. Thank you for joining us. For show notes or other episodes, please visit us at entrepreneurintel.com. Until next time.